The fluorescent lights in the family court waiting room buzzed like trapped insects. Sarah Chen sat in a plastic chair that had seen better decades. Her 7-year-old daughter Emma pressed against her side, small fingers clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. The rabbit's ear had come loose again, hanging by a single thread, much like Sarah's hope. Across the room, her ex-husband's attorney shuffled papers with the casual confidence of someone who'd never missed a meal. Sarah's own lawyer, a recent graduate working pro bono, looked like he was already composing his apology for losing. "Ms. Chen," the bailiff's voice cut through the stale air. "Judge Morrison will see you now." Sarah stood on legs that trembled despite her best efforts. She smoothed her thrift store blazer, the one with the missing button she'd covered with a carefully placed scarf, and took Emma's hand. "Is Daddy going to be there?" Emma whispered. Sarah's throat tightened. "No, baby. Remember? Daddy's not coming." Because Marcus Chen had been dead for 3 months, killed in a car accident on a business trip to Seattle. Dead, but not gone from their lives. His ghost haunted every unpaid bill, every collections notice. Every night Sarah lay awake, calculating how to stretch $847 until the end of the month. The courtroom was smaller than she'd expected, more intimate. Judge Morrison sat behind an elevated desk, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and reading glasses that caught the light. Sarah's ex-husband's family filled the left side of the gallery. His mother, Patricia Chen, sat in the front row, wearing pearls and judgment in equal measure. Beside her, Marcus's brother David and his wife, both dressed like they'd come from a country club lunch. They'd never approved of Sarah, a waitress when Marcus met her, working double shifts to put herself through community college. "Not our kind of people," Patricia had said at their wedding reception, loud enough for Sarah to hear. Marcus could have done so much better. Maybe she'd been right. Their marriage had lasted 5 years before Marcus's drinking and gambling turned their home into a war zone. The divorce had been ugly, fought over custody and child support Marcus rarely paid. Then he died, and Sarah had foolishly hoped the nightmare was over. It had only gotten worse. "We're here regarding the estate of Marcus Chen," Judge Morrison began, looking over her glasses at the assembled parties. Specifically, the distribution of assets to his daughter, Emma Chen, age 7. Sarah's lawyer, Michael Torres, stood awkwardly. "Your Honor, my client is the custodial parent and legal guardian of Emma Chen. Any assets from the estate should be held in trust for the child's benefit, with Ms. Chen as trustee." "Your Honor," the opposing attorney rose smoothly. His suit probably cost more than Sarah made in 3 months. The estate consists of a single property, purchased by the deceased 6 months before his death. The property is currently valued at approximately $5. A ripple of laughter ran through the Chen family side of the courtroom. Sarah felt her face burn. $5. Judge Morrison's eyebrows rose. "I assume there's more to this story." "The property is a condemned house in Riverside County, Your Honor. 2847 Magnolia Street. Purchased at a county tax auction for $5. The structure is uninhabitable, contaminated with black mold, and scheduled for demolition. The county has assessed liens totaling approximately $47,000 for code violations, unpaid utilities, and environmental cleanup costs." Sarah's stomach dropped. Michael Torres looked pale. "So you're saying," the judge said slowly, "that the deceased's only asset is a property that comes with nearly $50,000 in debt?" "Exactly, Your Honor, which is why my clients, Mr. Chen's mother and brother, are petitioning the court to disclaim any interest in the estate on behalf of the minor child. They don't want Emma burdened with this liability." How generous, Sarah thought bitterly. They'd fought for custody during the divorce, claiming she was an unfit mother. Now they were so concerned about Emma being burdened. Judge Morrison looked at Sarah. "Ms. Chen, do you understand what this means? If you accept this property as Emma's inheritance, you'll be responsible for those liens as her guardian." Sarah's mouth was dry. "I understand, Your Honor. And you're prepared to take on that responsibility?" $47,000 in debt. On top of the credit card debt from Marcus's gambling, the medical bills from Emma's ear infections, the student loan Sarah would be paying until she died. What was one more impossible number in an ocean of red ink? but Emma's small hand squeezed hers. Her daughter looked up with those wide brown eyes, so much like her father's before the alcohol had dulled them, and Sarah knew she couldn't let the Chens take this from her. Even if it was just a worthless house, even if it came with crushing debt, it was Emma's. The only thing Marcus had ever given his daughter. "Yes, Your Honor," Sarah said, her voice stronger than she felt. "I'll take responsibility for the property." Patricia Chen made a sound of disgust. Foolish girl. Still trying to prove something. Judge Morrison's gavel came down hard. "Mrs. Chen, you'll refrain from commentary in my courtroom." She looked at Sarah again, and something in her expression softened slightly. "Ms. Chen, I'm going to be very clear with you. This property is a liability, not an asset. You'd be well within your rights to disclaim it and walk away. Are you absolutely certain?" Sarah thought about the studio apartment she and Emma shared, the one with the broken heater and the landlord who'd already threatened eviction twice. She thought about Emma's school supplies bought at dollar stores, birthday parties they couldn't afford to attend, Christmas mornings with presents from the thrift store. She thought about how Patricia Chen looked at her granddaughter, like a consolation prize in a game the Chens had lost. "I'm certain, Your Honor." The paperwork was finalized in less than an hour. Sarah signed forms she barely read, her hand cramping around the pen. When it was done, she held a single key on a tarnished ring and a deed to 2847 Magnolia Street, Riverside County, California. Outside the courthouse, Patricia intercepted them. "You think you've won something," she said, looking at Sarah with cold eyes. "That house is a disaster. Marcus bought it in one of his drunken schemes, thought he could flip it. The inspectors condemned it the next week. You'll bankrupt yourself trying to deal with it. Then why did you fight to have Emma disclaim it?" Sarah asked quietly. Patricia's lips thinned. "Because I didn't want my granddaughter saddled with her father's mistakes. But if you're foolish enough to take them on, that's your choice. Don't come crying to us when you can't pay." She turned and walked away, her heels clicking on the courthouse steps like a countdown to disaster. Michael Torres touched Sarah's shoulder gently. "She's not wrong, you know. That property is toxic, legally speaking. The liens alone will destroy your credit." "My credit is already destroyed," Sarah said. "At least now Emma has something that belonged to her father, even if it's just a pile of wood and debt." That night, after Emma fell asleep in their shared bed, Sarah sat at the kitchen table with her laptop and researched 2847 Magnolia Street. The property records painted a bleak picture. The house had been built in 1947, a modest two-bedroom craftsman. It had changed hands 17 times in 70 years, never staying with one owner for more than a few years. The last owner before Marcus had been a shell corporation that had gone bankrupt. The county had seized it for unpaid taxes and auctioned it off. Marcus had been the only bidder at $5. The inspection reports were devastating. Black mold throughout, rotted foundation, electrical wiring from the 1940s, a fire hazard, plumbing that had frozen and burst multiple winters ago, roof partially collapsed. The environmental assessment mentioned possible asbestos and lead paint. Sarah's eyes blurred with tears. This was Emma's inheritance, a house that would cost hundreds of thousands to repair, sitting under nearly $50,000 in liens, scheduled for demolition in 6 months. She should have disclaimed it. Patricia had been right. This was just another of Marcus's disasters, reaching from beyond the grave to ruin them. But something made her keep reading. She pulled up old listings, trying to understand why this particular house had attracted 17 different owners. The neighborhood had been working class in the 1940s and 50s, declined in the 60s and 70s, seen a brief renaissance in the 90s before the 2008 crash had gutted it again. Nothing special, nothing that explained the strange pattern of ownership. Then she found a forum post from 2003 buried in a local history website. A user named Riverside Oldtimer had written about the house in response to someone asking about local legends. 2847 Magnolia is what we call a problem property, the post read. "My grandfather used to say there was a reason nobody stayed there long. Built for a railroad executive in 1947, guy poured money into it, then sold a year later for a loss. Every owner since has had the same story. They buy it cheap, thinking they got a deal, then something happens and they bail. Couple of deaths, couple of bankruptcies, Lots of just walking away and letting the bank take it. Place has a reputation. Sarah closed the laptop with shaking hands. A reputation. Perfect. She'd inherited a haunted money pit. The next morning was Saturday. Sarah called her boss at the diner where she worked and begged for the day off. Maria, bless her, agreed without making Sarah grovel too much. You take your girl, and you do what you need to do, Maria said in her thick accent. But you be here Sunday morning, yes? We have the church rush. I'll be there, Sarah promised. She packed snacks and juice boxes, dressed Emma in warm clothes despite the California sunshine, and borrowed her neighbor's car, promising to have it back by evening. The drive to Riverside took 90 minutes, Emma chattering in the back seat about a book her teacher had read, something about a mouse who was actually brave. Like you, Mama, Emma said. Teacher says being brave means you're scared but you do it anyway. That's you. Sarah's eyes stung. If Emma only knew how terrified she was. Every single day. Terrified of eviction, of losing her job, of getting sick and not being able to afford a doctor. Terrified that she was failing her daughter in 1,000 small ways. I love you, baby girl, she said, her voice thick. I love you more, Emma sang back, and Sarah had to pull over for a moment to collect herself. Magnolia Street was in an old neighborhood where the American dream had come to die. Half the houses were boarded up or clearly abandoned. The ones that were occupied looked weary, paint peeling, yards overgrown. A few showed signs of stubborn life. Flower boxes, swept porches, American flags hanging limp in the still air. 2847 stood at the end of the street, set back from the road behind a chain-link fence that sagged in places. Sarah pulled up and turned off the engine, staring. The house looked like something from a Depression-era photograph. Gray wood siding, darker in patches where moisture had done its work. The roof sagged in the middle like a tired spine. Windows were boarded with plywood tagged with graffiti. The front porch tilted at an angle that defied physics. This is Daddy's house, Emma asked, her voice small. Sarah wanted to lie, to say there'd been a mistake, to turn the car around and pretend this had never happened. Instead, she said, yes, baby. This is it. It looks sad. It does, Sarah agreed. Very sad. They got out of the car. The air smelled like dry grass and something faintly chemical. Sarah held Emma's hand as they approached the gate. It was secured with a chain and padlock that looked newer than anything else on the property. Probably the county's doing. Sarah pulled out the key ring Michael Torres had given her. 3 keys. One for the padlock, one for the front door, one labeled simply basement. The padlock opened with a rusty screech. Sarah pushed the gate open, and they walked up a cracked concrete path toward the porch. Each step felt like approaching a condemned cathedral, something that had once held meaning, but now only held ghosts. Can we go inside? Emma asked. Sarah looked at the condemned notice posted on the door, at the danger warnings, at the structural instability caution tape. Every reasonable bone in her body screamed no. Just for a minute, she heard herself say. We'll be very careful. The front door, key stuck in the lock, fighting her. Sarah had to use both hands, twisting until her palms hurt, before something gave way with a grinding click. The door swung inward on hinges that shrieked like dying birds. The smell hit them first. Mold, decay, and something underneath that Sarah couldn't identify. Sweet and wrong. Emma wrinkled her nose and pressed closer to Sarah's leg. It stinks. It does, Sarah agreed. Stay right next to me, okay? Don't touch anything. They stepped inside. The entryway opened into what had once been a living room. Afternoon light filtered through gaps in the boarded windows, painting everything in shades of gray. The floorboards were warped, some missing entirely, revealing the crawl space beneath. Water stains ballooned across the ceiling like spreading bruises. In the corner, black mold climbed the wall like ivy from hell. Furniture still occupied the space, though calling it furniture was generous. A couch that looked like it had been mauled by animals. A coffee table on 3 legs. Curtains hanging in tatters. Why did Daddy buy this house? Emma whispered. That was the question, wasn't it? Marcus had been many things, a drunk, a gambler, sometimes cruel, occasionally sweet, but he'd never been stupid about money. Even in his worst binges, he'd had a kind of cunning about where he placed his bets, where he thought he could win. So why this house? $5 at auction. He must have known it was condemned. Must have seen the inspection reports. What had he been thinking? Sarah moved through the living room carefully, testing each floorboard before putting her full weight down. A hallway led to what appeared to be 2 bedrooms, both empty except for more rot and ruin. The bathroom was a nightmare of burst pipes and mildewed tile. The kitchen was at the back of the house, surprisingly larger than the other rooms. Old cabinets hung at drunken angles. The sink had pulled away from the wall. The linoleum floor had curled up in waves. But there was something about the space. Despite the decay, Sarah could see the bones of what it had been. The generous windows, the layout that had probably been modern in 1947. Someone had loved this house once, had poured care into it. Emma tugged her hand. "Mama, look." She was pointing at the kitchen wall, where someone had marked height measurements in pencil. Faded names and dates climbed the doorframe. Tommy, age 5, 1952. Mary, age 7, 1954. Tommy, age 10, 1957. A family had lived here, had measured their children's growth against this wall, had been happy here at least for a while. Sarah's throat tightened. They found the basement door in a narrow hallway off the kitchen. It was locked with a deadbolt that looked newer than the rest of the hardware, like someone had replaced it recently. Sarah pulled out the third key, the one marked basement. It slid in smoothly. Too smoothly. This lock had been used recently, maintained. "Maybe we shouldn't," Sarah said, suddenly uneasy. But Emma was already pushing the door open. "Come on, Mama. Let's see." Wooden stairs descended into darkness. Sarah pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through shadow, revealing steps that looked surprisingly solid compared to the floor upstairs. They went down carefully, Sarah first, Emma holding tight to her jacket. The basement was larger than she'd expected, stretching under the entire footprint of the house. The ceiling was lower here, barely 6 feet. Support posts stood like sentinels in the darkness. And everywhere, boxes. Dozens of them, stacked along the walls, carefully arranged on shelves. "What is all this?" Sarah breathed. She approached the nearest box and lifted the lid. Inside, wrapped in protective plastic, were books. Old books, their covers embossed with gold lettering. She pulled one out carefully. The Great Gatsby, first edition, 1925, read a small tag attached to the wrapping. Her hands started to shake. The next box held coins in protective cases. The next, stamps mounted in albums. Another contained what looked like old baseball cards, each one carefully preserved in plastic sleeves. "Mama," Emma's voice was uncertain. "What is this stuff?" Sarah moved through the basement like a woman in a dream, opening box after box. Comic books from the 1940s and 50s. Vintage toys still in original packaging. Antique jewelry. Movie posters rolled in archival tubes. Paintings wrapped in acid-free paper. In the far corner, she found a filing cabinet. The top drawer was locked, but the bottom 2 opened. Inside were ledgers, handwritten inventory lists, and authentication certificates from various appraisal companies. Sarah pulled out one of the ledgers with trembling hands and opened it to a random page. Each item was listed with meticulous detail: description, date acquired, condition, estimated value. Action Comics number 1, June 1938, graded 6.5, acquired 2019, estimated value $1,800,000. The ledger slipped from her fingers. She grabbed another page. Honus Wagner T206 baseball card, 1909, PSA 5, acquired 2018, estimated value $2,400,000. Another. Leonardo da Vinci sketchbook, authenticated 1547, acquired 2020, estimated value $45 million. Sarah sank to the floor, her legs giving out. Emma crouched beside her, frightened. "Mama? What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, baby," Sarah whispered. "Nothing's wrong at all." She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and started photographing the inventory lists, hardly believing what she was seeing. Page after page of items, hundreds of them, each one valued in the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. At the back of one ledger, she found a summary page. Her eyes traveled to the bottom line and stopped. Total estimated collection value, $284,700,000. $284,700,000. In the basement of a $5 house. Sarah started to laugh. It came out wrong, high and slightly hysterical. Emma grabbed her arm, scared now. Mama, you're scaring me. I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. Sarah pulled her daughter into her arms and held her tight. Everything's going to be okay. Better than okay. We're going to be fine. We're really going to be fine. But even as she said it, her mind was racing. Where had Marcus gotten this? Had he stolen it? Was this why the house had changed hands so many times? Were people dying or disappearing because of whatever was hidden down here? She needed help. She needed someone who could tell her if this was real, if it was legal, if claiming it wouldn't destroy them worse than the liens on the house. Sarah carefully closed the ledgers and placed them back in the filing cabinet. She made sure her phone had photographed everything important, then took Emma's hand. We need to go, sweetheart. Right now. They climbed the stairs quickly, Sarah locking the basement door behind them. As they hurried through the kitchen, she noticed something she'd missed before. A piece of paper pinned to the wall with a thumbtack, protected in a plastic sheet. She pulled it down. It was a handwritten note in Marcus's scrawling script. Sarah, it read, if you're reading this, I'm dead, and you've inherited this mess. I'm sorry for everything, for the drinking, the gambling, for being a shitty husband and father. I can't fix what I broke between us, but maybe I can fix Emma's future. This collection is real. It's legal, mostly. I won in a poker game from a guy who needed to disappear. He was running from some bad people, people who wanted what's in the basement. They don't know I have it. They think it burned in a warehouse fire. Keep it that way. Don't tell anyone until you've moved it somewhere safe. Trust no one, especially not my family. They'll take it from you if they can. Get a good lawyer. Get authentication. Then sell it piece by piece, not all at once. Use the money for Emma. Give her the life I never could. I'm sorry I couldn't be the man you deserved. But maybe this can be something good that came from my wasted life. Protect our daughter. She's the only thing I ever did right. Marcus. Sarah stood in the ruined kitchen, tears streaming down her face, reading the note again and again. Marcus had known he was going to die, or at least had known he might. He'd bought this house, hidden this collection, and left it for Emma with instructions on how to protect it. For once in his miserable, chaotic life, he'd actually thought about his daughter's future. Mama, why are you crying? Emma asked. Because your daddy loved you, Sarah said, her voice breaking. He loved you so much. They left the house quickly, Sarah locking everything behind them. As they drove away, she kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see someone following them. Marcus's note had mentioned people. Bad people who'd been looking for this collection. People who thought it had been destroyed. If they found out it still existed, if they found out she had it. Sarah's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She needed to be smart about this. Careful. One wrong move, and whatever Marcus had left them could vanish. Or worse, get them killed. That night, after Emma was asleep, Sarah sat at her kitchen table and made a list. She needed a lawyer who specialized in estate law and valuable collections, an authentication expert to verify what was actually in the basement, a security company to move everything somewhere safe, and a way to do all this without anyone knowing what she'd found. The problem was that she had $312 in her checking account and no way to pay for any of it. Sarah stared at the list until her vision blurred. She'd gone from $0 to $280 million in the space of an afternoon. And somehow, she was still broke, still terrified, still alone. She thought about Marcus's warning. Trust no one. But Sarah had spent her entire adult life trusting no one, relying only on herself. And where had that gotten her? A studio apartment and a daughter who deserved so much more. She needed help. The question was where to find it. Sarah pulled up her laptop and started searching for estate lawyers in Los Angeles. Most had consultation fees starting at $500. She couldn't afford that. She kept searching, filtering by pro bono, payment plans, free consultation. Most results were scams or unhelpful. But one stood out. A small firm in Koreatown, Lee & Associates, specializing in complex estate litigation. Their website mentioned flexible payment options and a commitment to helping families protect inheritances. It was past midnight, but Sarah sent an email anyway, carefully wording it to sound routine. Recently inherited valuable property. Need guidance on liens and potential assets. Limited funds, but could discuss payment arrangements. She hit send before she could second-guess herself, then closed the laptop. Tomorrow she'd return to her shift at the diner. She'd smile at customers and refill coffee and pretend everything was normal while sitting on a secret worth more than most people would see in 100 lifetimes. But tonight, she let herself feel it. The terror and the hope warring in her chest. The knowledge that everything had just changed, even if she didn't yet understand how. Sarah walked to the bedroom and looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully, still clutching her threadbare rabbit. Her daughter, the only thing Marcus had ever done right. "We're going to be okay, baby," Sarah whispered. "Your daddy might have finally kept a promise." She just hoped that promise wouldn't kill them both. The response from Lee and Associates came at 6:47 the next morning, before Sarah's alarm had even gone off. She woke to the ping of her email notification and grabbed her phone, squinting at the screen in the pre-dawn darkness. "Ms. Chen, thank you for reaching out. I'm Christine Lee, senior partner. Your situation sounds complex, and I'd like to discuss it as soon as possible. I have an opening at 9 a.m. this morning, if you're available. No consultation fee for the initial meeting. Please call my direct line to confirm." Sarah's heart pounded. This morning, in less than 3 hours, she'd have to call in sick to the diner, which meant losing a day's pay she couldn't afford to lose. But if this lawyer could help her navigate what she'd found, it would be worth it. She made the call, her voice still rough with sleep. Christine Lee answered on the second ring, sounding alert and professional despite the early hour. "Ms. Chen, thank you for calling so quickly. I want to be upfront with you. I've handled several estate cases involving unexpected discoveries, and they can get complicated fast. Before we meet, I need to ask you a direct question. Is there any possibility that what you've inherited might be stolen property or involved in criminal activity?" Sarah's throat went dry. She thought about Marcus's note. Legal, mostly. She thought about the warning about bad people looking for the collection. "I don't know," she said honestly. "My ex-husband left a note suggesting the collection came from a poker game, but he also warned that dangerous people might come looking for it. He said they think it was destroyed in a fire." There was a long pause. Then Christine said, "I see. That does complicate things. Ms. Chen, I'm going to be very honest with you. If what you've inherited is worth what you think it is, you're going to need more than just an estate lawyer. You're going to need protection, legal, physical, and financial. Are you prepared for that level of complexity?" "I don't have a choice," Sarah said. "I have a 7-year-old daughter. Whatever this is, it's hers now. I need to protect it for her. Then let's meet this morning. But Ms. Chen, do not go back to that property alone. And don't tell anyone else what you found. Not family, not friends. Nobody. Understood?" "Understood." Sarah hung up and sat on the edge of her bed, her hands shaking. This was real. This was actually happening. She got Emma ready for school, made her breakfast, walked her to the bus stop. Every movement felt surreal, like she was watching herself from outside her body. How was she supposed to act normal when her entire world had shifted on its axis? At 8:45, Sarah stood outside a modest office building in Koreatown. Lee and Associates occupied the 3rd floor, a small suite with worn carpet and mismatched furniture that somehow felt more trustworthy than the gleaming corporate offices she'd seen online. Christine Lee was a woman in her late 40s, Korean-American, with sharp eyes and silver streaking through her black hair. She shook Sarah's hand firmly and led her to a small conference room. "Tell me everything," Christine said, pulling out a legal pad. "Start from the beginning." Sarah did. The court hearing, Patricia's disdain, the $5 house with $47,000 in liens. The decision to accept it anyway. The discovery of the basement. The inventory ledgers showing $284 million in collectibles. Marcus's warning note. Christine listened without interrupting, taking meticulous notes. When Sarah finished, the lawyer sat back and let out a long breath. "Okay, first things first. We need to verify that what you found is actually what the ledgers claim. Those authentication certificates you mentioned, were they from reputable firms?" I don't know. I photographed everything, but I don't know enough about this world to know what's reputable. Let me see the photos. Sarah pulled out her phone and scrolled through the hundreds of images she'd taken. Christine examined them carefully, zooming in on details, cross-referencing company names on her own phone. These are legitimate authenticators, she said finally. Sotheby's, Heritage Auctions, PSA for the trading cards, CGC for the comics. If these certificates are real and not forgeries, then what you found is genuine. The question is, how did your ex-husband acquire $280 million in authenticated collectibles? He said he won them in a poker game. Christine's eyebrows rose. That's unusual. High-stakes poker games do happen, but we're talking about someone putting up $250 million in collectibles as collateral. That suggests either an incredibly stupid gambler or someone desperate to liquidate assets quickly without going through normal channels. His note said the person was running from bad people, which suggests the collection might be connected to criminal activity, even if your ex-husband acquired it legitimately. Ms. Chen, I need to ask you something important. If we pursue this, if we claim ownership and try to liquidate these assets, we're going to attract attention. From the IRS, from the probate court, from authentication experts, and possibly from whoever was originally looking for this collection. Are you prepared for that? Sarah thought about Emma's threadbare rabbit, about the eviction notices, about working double shifts and still falling behind. I'm prepared to give my daughter a future, she said. Whatever that takes. Christine nodded slowly. Then here's what we need to do. First, we inventory everything professionally. I know a discreet inventory specialist who's worked with me on sensitive cases. Second, we move the collection to a secure facility immediately. Third, we begin the authentication process to verify the ledgers are accurate. Fourth, we prepare for legal challenges from your ex-husband's family, from potential creditors, and from anyone else who might claim ownership. I can't afford any of this, Sarah said quietly. I know, which is why I'm going to make you an unusual offer. I'll work on contingency. My firm will front the costs for inventory, security, and authentication. In return, we take 15% of whatever we successfully liquidate, plus reimbursement for expenses. If we fail, you owe us nothing. Why would you take that risk? Christine smiled slightly. Because cases like this don't come along often, and because I believe in helping people who've been counted out get what they're owed. Your ex-husband's family clearly thinks you're going to fold under the pressure. I like to prove them wrong. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. When do we start? Right now. I'm calling the inventory specialist and a security company I trust. We're going to that house today, cataloging everything, and moving it before anyone else realizes what you have. By noon, Sarah was back in Riverside with Christine, a stern-faced inventory specialist named Robert Kim, and two security guards from a firm called Sentinel Protection Services. They arrived in 3 vehicles, drawing curious stares from the few neighbors on Magnolia Street. Robert Kim was methodical and thorough. He set up lights in the basement, photographing each item from multiple angles, checking authentication certificates against online databases, making detailed notes in a tablet. This is extraordinary, he kept murmuring. Some of these pieces, I've only seen photos of them in auction catalogs. The Da Vinci sketchbook alone. Is it real? Sarah asked. The authentication certificate is from a legitimate Renaissance art expert. If it's a forgery, it's an incredibly good one. We'll need a full analysis, but preliminary assessment suggests it's genuine. How much? At auction? Could go for $50 million or more. Private sale? Maybe $40 million. Depends on the buyer and the provenance. Sarah had to sit down. $50 million. For one item. And there were hundreds more boxes. The inventory took 6 hours. By the time they finished, Robert had cataloged 287 individual items with a combined estimated value of $284.7 million, almost exactly matching Marcus's ledger. Your ex-husband was meticulous, Robert said. These records are better than some museums keep. Every acquisition is documented. Every authentication is current. Someone taught him how to maintain a collection properly. Or he copied someone else's system, Christine suggested. Loading the collection into an armored truck took another 3 hours. The security guards handled each box with extreme care, loading them under Robert's watchful eye. Sarah stood in the basement, watching her daughter's inheritance being packed away, and felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on her chest. "Where are we taking it?" she asked Christine. "A climate-controlled storage facility in Los Angeles. High security, 24-hour surveillance, insurance coverage up to $500 million. It'll cost $8,000 a month, but we'll recoup that from the first sale." $8,000 a month. Sarah's entire annual income from the diner wouldn't cover 2 months of storage. As the last box was loaded, one of the security guards approached Christine. "Ma'am, we've got a situation." Sarah's stomach dropped. "What kind of situation?" "Black SUV has been circling the block for the last hour. Tinted windows, no plates visible. They're watching us." Christine's face went hard. "How many occupants?" "At least 2, maybe 3. Can you tell if they're armed?" "Negative, but I'd assume yes." Sarah felt her legs go weak. Marcus had warned her. Bad people who wanted the collection. People who thought it had burned. But somehow they'd found out. "We need to leave," Christine said. "Now, Robert, you ride with the armored truck. Miss Chen, you're with me. Security, I want one of you in front, one behind. If that SUV follows, we call the police immediately." They moved quickly, loading into vehicles with practiced efficiency. Sarah climbed into Christine's Mercedes, her heart hammering. Through the window, she saw the black SUV parked 2 blocks down, engine running. The armored truck pulled out first, followed by 1 security vehicle. Christine waited a beat, then pulled out behind them. The second security car fell in behind her. They drove in convoy toward the freeway. The black SUV followed. "They're not even trying to hide it," Christine said, her voice tight. She pulled out her phone and dialed. "This is Christine Lee with Lee and Associates. I'm traveling eastbound on Highway 60 with a client, and we're being followed by a black SUV, no visible plates. We're transporting high-value property, and I believe we're at risk. Requesting police escort." She gave their exact location and vehicle descriptions. Sarah turned in her seat, watching the SUV maintain a steady distance behind them, neither closing nor falling back. "Who do you think they are?" Sarah whispered. "Whoever your ex-husband won that collection from, or whoever they were running from." Christine's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. "The question is whether they want the collection back or whether they want to make sure nobody else gets it." 2 police cars appeared within 10 minutes, one pulling alongside their convoy, the other dropping back near the black SUV. The SUV immediately took the next exit, disappearing into surface streets. "We're clear," the security guard radioed. "But they've got our route now. They know we're heading to LA. "Change of plans," Christine said into the phone. "Don't go to the storage facility. Head to the Santa Monica Police Department. We'll meet you there and transfer to a different vehicle. If they're tracking us, we need to lose them before we make the final delivery." The next 2 hours were a blur of coordinated movements, vehicle changes, and counter-surveillance protocols that made Sarah feel like she'd stumbled into a spy movie. By the time they finally delivered the collection to the storage facility, using a completely different route and entry point, it was after midnight. Sarah stood in the climate control vault, looking at the boxes containing $284 million, and felt exhaustion crashing over her like a wave. "Ms. Chen," Christine said gently, "you should go home. Get some sleep. We have a long road ahead." "I can't go home," Sarah said dully. "Emma's at my neighbor's. I texted that I'd be late, but then come to my place. I have a guest room. You shouldn't be alone tonight." Sarah wanted to argue, to maintain her independence, to prove she could handle this. But she was so tired. Tired of being strong, tired of being alone, tired of fighting every single day just to survive. "Okay," she whispered. "Thank you." Christine's house was a modest bungalow in Silver Lake, filled with books and artwork and the comfortable clutter of a life well lived. She made Sarah tea, gave her a clean t-shirt to sleep in, and showed her to a small bedroom with soft sheets and blackout curtains. Sarah lay in the darkness, her body aching with exhaustion, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. Somewhere out there, people were looking for the collection. People who'd followed them, who knew she had it. People who might hurt her or Emma to get it back. Marcus had left her a fortune, but he'd also left her a target on her back. Tomorrow, she'd have to figure out how to protect her daughter while claiming what was rightfully hers. Tomorrow, she'd have to be brave again. But tonight, for the first time in 3 months, Sarah Chen fell asleep, knowing her daughter's future was no longer impossible. It was just dangerous, and somehow that felt like progress. Sarah woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains and the smell of coffee brewing. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The basement, the collection, the black SUV following them through Los Angeles. She grabbed her phone. 6 missed calls from her neighbor Patricia, 2 from the diner, and a text from Emma sent at 7:30 that morning. "Where you, Mama? Mrs. Kim says you're okay, but I'm worried." Sarah's chest tightened with guilt. She'd been so consumed with protecting the collection that she'd barely thought about how her absence would affect her daughter. She called immediately. "Mama." Emma's voice was thick with relief. "You didn't come home last night." "I know, baby. I'm so sorry. Something came up with the house, with Daddy's house. I had to stay late to take care of it. But I'm coming to get you right now, okay?" "Mrs. Kim made me pancakes." "That's good. I'll be there in an hour. I love you. Love you more." Sarah ended the call and found Christine in the kitchen, dressed for work, 2 mugs of coffee already poured. "Your daughter okay?" Christine asked. Scared. Confused. "I hate lying to her." "You're not lying. You are dealing with your ex-husband's house. You just haven't told her everything yet." Christine slid a mug across the counter. "I've been up since 5 doing research. The collectibles market is complex, but I've identified 3 auction houses that could handle a collection of this size discreetly. Sotheby's, Christie's, and Heritage Auctions. Each has departments that specialize in handling sensitive estates. How long until we can start selling? Realistically, 3 to 4 months. We need to complete authentication on every piece, establish clear provenance, navigate the estate laws, and most importantly, make sure we're not selling stolen property. If even one item turns out to be hot, the entire collection could be seized." Sarah's stomach sank. 3 to 4 months. I don't have 3 months. I have $200 in my bank account and rent due in 2 weeks. Christine was quiet for a moment. "I can front you some money. Call it an advance against your settlement. I can't take your money. You can and you will. Consider it part of my investment in this case. You're no good to me if you're evicted and your daughter is in foster care." Christine pulled out her checkbook and started writing. "This is $10,000. It should cover rent, food, and basics for the next few months while we work through the legal process." Sarah stared at the check. $10,000. More money than she'd had at one time in her entire life. "I'll pay you back. With interest. I know you will. Now go get your daughter and act as normal as possible. The people who followed us yesterday are looking for signs that we found something valuable. Don't give them any." Sarah drove home in Christine's Mercedes. Her own car had been left at the storage facility as part of the counter-surveillance measures, and picked up Emma from the neighbor's apartment. Mrs. Kim was understanding, but concerned. "You look terrible," she said bluntly in her accented English. "Like you haven't slept in days. Just dealing with estate stuff. My ex-husband left some complicated property issues." Mrs. Kim didn't look convinced. "You be careful. Men who die suddenly, they leave more than property. They leave problems." Sarah hugged Emma tight, breathing in her daughter's strawberry shampoo scent, letting it ground her. Whatever happened next, she had to protect this. Emma's innocence, her safety, her childhood. The next week passed in a blur of anxiety and logistics. Sarah returned to her shifts at the diner, smiling at customers while her mind churned through worst-case scenarios. Christine worked with Robert Kim to begin the authentication process, bringing in specialists for the most valuable pieces. The Da Vinci sketchbook was real. Carbon dating confirmed the paper was from the 16th century, and a Renaissance art expert authenticated Leonardo's distinctive mirror script writing. Estimated value, $52 million. The Action Comics #1 was genuine. Original 1938 printing, graded 6.5 by CGC, one of fewer than 100 copies known to exist. Estimated value, $1.9 million. The Honus Wagner baseball card was legitimate. PSA authenticated T206 series from 1909. Estimated value, $3.2 million. Item after item came back verified. The collection was real. Every impossible, terrifying dollar of it. But verification brought new problems. Each authentication expert who handled the pieces became another person who knew what Sarah had. Another potential leak. Another risk. On Thursday afternoon, Sarah was refilling coffee at the diner when her phone buzzed with a text from Christine. "Call me immediately. Don't discuss on phone. Come to office." Sarah's hands shook as she poured coffee, some of it splashing onto the counter. She cleaned it up, told Maria she felt sick, and drove to Koreatown with her heart in her throat. Christine's expression was grim when Sarah entered her office. "We have a problem. A big one." "What happened?" "I received a letter this morning. Hand-delivered to my office. No return address." Christine slid an envelope across her desk. "Read it." Sarah's fingers trembled as she pulled out a single sheet of paper. The message was typed, impersonal, terrifying. "Ms. Lee, you are representing Sarah Chen in matters related to the estate of Marcus Chen. You should know that the collection currently in your possession was stolen from its rightful owners. Marcus Chen acquired it through fraud and illegal gambling operations. We are prepared to provide evidence to law enforcement unless the collection is returned to us within 72 hours. Contact will be made. Do not involve the police. Do not attempt to sell any items. Return what was stolen, and Ms. Chen and her daughter will not be harmed." The last sentence made Sarah's vision blur. They threatened Emma. Yes, which means they know who you are, where you live, and that you have a daughter. Christine's voice was controlled, but Sarah could hear the anger underneath. "This is extortion. They're trying to scare us into handing over $280 million. Should we give it to them? No, because if we do, we have no guarantee they'll leave you alone. In fact, giving in proves you're easy to intimidate. They'll come back for more." Christine pulled up a document on her computer. "I've been researching the provenance of this collection. The note said Marcus won in a poker game, but I wanted to verify that story. And I found something interesting. 6 months ago, there was a major theft from a private collector in Las Vegas. $300 million in authenticated collectibles stolen from a climate control vault. The collector was a man named Vincent Castellano." Sarah's blood went cold. That name sounds familiar. It should. Vincent Castellano is a known associate of the Moretti crime family. He's been investigated multiple times for money laundering, racketeering, and fraud, but never convicted. The collectibles theft was reported to the FBI, but the investigation went nowhere. The prevailing theory was that it was an inside job, someone with access to Castellano's security codes. "You think Marcus was involved in stealing the collection?" "I think Marcus won it from someone who stole it from Castellano. And now Castellano wants it back." Christine leaned forward. "Here's what we know. Castellano's collection was insured for $300 million. After the theft, he filed a claim. The insurance company is still fighting it, claiming he orchestrated the theft himself to collect the payout. If that's true, he's desperate to get the actual collection back to prove it was really stolen. So if we don't give it back, he'll come after you with everything he has. Legal pressure, physical intimidation, possibly worse. But if we do give it back, you lose Emma's inheritance and you're still at risk because you know too much." Sarah felt like she was drowning. "What do we do?" Christine was quiet for a long moment. "We do something Castellano won't expect. We go to the FBI ourselves. We report that you inherited property that may be connected to the Vegas theft. We cooperate fully, provide all documentation, and let them investigate. If the collection is proven to be stolen, it gets returned to its rightful owner, probably the insurance company at this point. But if we can prove Marcus acquired it legally, even if from someone who stole it, we might have a claim under good faith purchaser laws. Would that work? Maybe. It's risky, but it's better than waiting for Castellano to make his move." Christine pulled out her phone. "I have a contact at the FBI, an agent who specializes in art theft and fraud. His name is David Torres. I worked with him on a case 3 years ago. If anyone can navigate this situation, it's him." "Do it," Sarah said. Her voice sounded hollow to her own ears. "Whatever keeps Emma safe." Christine made the call. 2 hours later, They were sitting in a federal building downtown, across from FBI Special Agent David Torres. He was in his 40s, Latino, with tired eyes that had seen too much human nature at its worst. "Let me make sure I understand," he said after Christine explained the situation. "Your client inherited a condemned house from her ex-husband. In the basement, she found a collection of authenticated valuables worth approximately $280 million. She's received threats from someone claiming the collection was stolen, and you believe it might be connected to the Castellano theft in Las Vegas." "Correct," Christine said. Torres looked at Sarah. "Ms. Chen, did you know your ex-husband was involved in high-stakes gambling?" "Yes. It was one of the reasons we divorced. He had a problem." "Did he ever mention how he acquired this collection?" Sarah pulled out Marcus's note, the one she'd found in the kitchen. Torres read it carefully, his expression neutral. "He claims he won it in a poker game." "That's possible. High-stakes games do happen, and people have been known to bet valuable property." Torres set the note down. "But winning $280 million in a poker game raises questions. Who was he playing against? Where? Were there witnesses?" "I don't know. Marcus died 3 months ago. I can't ask him." Torres nodded slowly. "Here's the situation. The Castellano theft is an active investigation. We've suspected for months that someone on the inside helped facilitate it, but we haven't been able to prove who. If your ex-husband's collection is the stolen property, and if he won it from the actual thief, he might have been killed to keep him quiet." Sarah's hands went cold. His death was ruled an accident. Car crash on a business trip. Convenient timing. Right after he hid the collection in a house nobody knew he owned. Torres pulled out a notepad. "I'm going to need everything. The inventory lists, the authentication certificates, your ex-husband's financial records, anything that might tell us how he acquired these items. If we give you everything and it turns out to be stolen, what happens to my daughter's inheritance?" Sarah asked. "If it's proven stolen, it goes back to the rightful owner or their insurance company. You get nothing. But Ms. Chen, if you withhold evidence from a federal investigation, you could face criminal charges yourself. And if Castellano is behind the threats, you're in serious danger. The FBI can offer you protection, but only if you cooperate fully." Sarah looked at Christine, who nodded slightly. "Tell him everything." Over the next 3 hours, Sarah laid out the entire story. The court hearing, Patricia's disdain, the discovery of the basement, the inventory, the black SUV following them, the threatening letter. Torres listened, took notes, and asked clarifying questions. "I'm going to be straight with you," he said finally. "This is complicated. If the collection is from a Castellano theft, which seems likely, you're caught in the middle of a power struggle between Castellano, whoever stole from him, and possibly other parties we don't know about yet. Your ex-husband's death might not have been an accident, and you're now a target because you have something multiple dangerous people want. Can you protect us?" Sarah asked. "We can offer witness protection if it comes to that. But it's a last resort. It means leaving your life behind. New identity, new location, no contact with anyone from your old life." Torres saw Sarah's face go pale. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that. First step is to secure the collection and run a full investigation into provenance." "Where is it now?" "A climate-controlled storage facility in Los Angeles. High security." "Good. I'm going to need access. We'll need to photograph everything, run serial numbers, compare against the inventory from the Castellano theft. And Ms. Chen, until this is resolved, you need to be extremely careful. Vary your routine. Don't go anywhere alone. Watch for surveillance. If you see anything suspicious, call me immediately." He handed her his card. "My cell number is on the back. It's monitored 24/7. Sarah took the card with numb fingers. "How long will the investigation take?" "Weeks at minimum. Possibly months. These things take time." Torres stood. "I know this is overwhelming, but you did the right thing coming to us. A lot of people in your position would have tried to hide the collection or sell it quietly. That almost always ends badly." As they left the federal building, Sarah felt hollowed out, exhausted. "What do I do now?" she asked Christine. "You go home. You hug your daughter. You keep living your life as normally as possible. And you trust that we're doing everything we can to protect you both." But normal was a luxury Sarah could no longer afford. That night, As she lay in bed with Emma curled against her side, she heard every sound in the building with hyper-awareness. Footsteps in the hallway, a door closing somewhere, the rumble of traffic outside. She'd spent years fighting to keep Emma safe, to keep a roof over their heads, to keep food on the table. And in one desperate decision to accept Marcus's inheritance, she'd put them both in more danger than she'd ever imagined possible. The next morning, Sarah dropped Emma at school with strict instructions. If anyone you don't know tries to talk to you, you run to a teacher immediately. Don't go anywhere with anyone except me or Mrs. Kim. Understand? Emma's eyes were wide. Am I in trouble? No, baby. But I need you to be extra careful for a while, okay? Can you do that for me? Okay, Mama. Sarah watched her daughter disappear into the school building, her heart aching. Emma was 7. She should be worrying about spelling tests and playground politics, not whether dangerous strangers might approach her. At the diner, Sarah worked her shift in a fog. Maria noticed. You're burning the eggs, she said, not unkindly. What's going on with you? Just tired. Haven't been sleeping well. It's more than that. You look scared. Someone bothering you? Because my nephew, he's a cop. I can call him. Sarah almost laughed. A cop? What could a local police officer do against organized crime and the FBI and a $280 million secret? I'm okay. Just dealing with some complicated stuff from my ex-husband's estate. Men, Maria muttered. They die and still cause problems. Mrs. Kim had said the same thing. Sarah was starting to think they were both right. That afternoon, Torres called. We've completed the preliminary comparison. At least 40% of the items in your collection match the inventory from the Castellano theft. Serial numbers, authentication certificates, even specific markings. It's definitely the stolen property. Sarah closed her eyes. So Emma loses her inheritance. Not necessarily. There's a legal principle called good faith purchaser. If your ex-husband acquired the collection without knowledge that it was stolen, and if you inherited it without knowledge, you might have a claim to compensation. But it's complicated and would require litigation. Against who? Castellano. Against the insurance company who paid out on his theft claim. They now legally own the stolen property. But Ms. Chen, there's something else. We ran your ex-husband's financials. In the 3 months before his death, he made several large cash deposits. $50,000 here, $75,000 there. Over $500,000 total, all cash. Sarah's stomach turned. From where? That's what we're trying to determine. It's possible he was selling pieces of the collection privately, which would suggest he knew it was stolen. Or it's possible someone was paying him to hide it. Either way, it complicates your claim of innocence. I didn't know about any of this. I was divorced from him. We barely spoke. I believe you. But a good defense attorney would argue that you must have suspected something when you found $280 million in a basement. Why didn't you immediately report it? Sarah's hands were shaking. I was trying to protect my daughter's future. I understand. But you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that this doesn't end well. Even if you're not charged with any crime, even if you act in good faith, you might walk away with nothing. After Torres hung up, Sarah sat in her car outside the diner and let herself cry. Huge, gulping sobs that came from somewhere deep and broken inside her. She'd been so close to fixing everything, to giving Emma the life she deserved. And now it was slipping away. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Ms. Chen. The voice was male, older, with the kind of smooth authority that came from years of being obeyed. My name is Vincent Castellano. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Sarah's blood turned to ice. How did you get this number? That's not important. What's important is that we have a conversation before you make any more mistakes. The FBI can't protect you, Ms. Chen. They can't be everywhere all the time. And they certainly can't protect your daughter 24 hours a day. If you touch my daughter, I'm not a monster. I don't hurt children. But I'm a businessman, and I expect to recover my property. You've been to the FBI. I know that. You've told them everything. That was very foolish. The collection was stolen from you. The FBI will return it. Eventually, yes. After months of investigation, legal battles, court proceedings. By that time, I'll have lost millions in opportunity costs. I prefer a more immediate solution. What do you want? A meeting. Face to face. You, me, and your lawyer if you prefer. We discuss a reasonable settlement. I get my property back, you get compensated for your trouble, and we all move on with our lives. No FBI, no courts, no danger to anyone. I don't believe you. Castellano's laugh was cold. Smart woman. You're right not to trust me. But consider your options. Work with the FBI, spend months in legal limbo, possibly end up with nothing and a target on your back. Or work with me. Walk away with enough money to take care of your daughter and never hear from me again. How much money? $5 million. Cash. Tax-free. That's more than you'd make in 10 lifetimes waiting tables. $5 million. Sarah's mind reeled. It was a fortune. Enough to never worry about rent or bills or Emma's future again. But it was also $279 million less than what the collection was worth. I need to think about it, she said. You have 24 hours. I'll call tomorrow at this time. If you agree to meet, we'll arrange details. If not, well, I'll have to explore other options for recovering what's mine. And Ms. Chen, just so we're clear, I have very good lawyers. If you try to record this conversation and give it to the FBI, I'll deny everything. It'll be your word against mine. And I have considerably more credibility. He hung up. Sarah sat in her car, shaking, trying to process what had just happened. Castellano had called her directly. He knew her number. He knew she'd been to the FBI. He knew about Emma. And he just offered her $5 million to betray the federal investigation. She called Christine immediately. Castellano just contacted me. What? When? What did he say? Sarah recounted the conversation. Christine was silent for a long moment. He's trying to split you from the FBI, make you think you'll get nothing from them while he's offering a fortune. It's a classic manipulation tactic. But what if he's right? Torres said, I might end up with nothing even if I cooperate. At least this way, I'd have $5 million. Sarah, listen to me very carefully. If you take Castellano's money, you become complicit in receiving stolen property. You could face criminal charges. And more importantly, you put yourself and Emma in his debt. Men like Castellano don't just hand over $5 million and walk away. He'd own you, but Emma would be safe. We'd have money. We could move somewhere far away and start over. You'd be looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. Is that really safety? Christine's voice softened. I know this is terrifying. I know it feels like the walls are closing in. But we have to trust the process. The FBI, the investigation, the legal system, they're not perfect, but they're better than making a deal with a mobster. Sarah wanted to believe her. But trust was expensive when you had nothing left to lose. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Castellano's offer. $5 million. She could buy a house, a real house with a yard and Emma's own bedroom. She could go back to school, finish her degree. She could stop working double shifts and actually be present in her daughter's life. All she had to do was betray everything she told the FBI and trust a man who made his fortune through violence and crime. Around 3 a.m., Sarah got out of bed and pulled up her laptop. She started researching Vincent Castellano, going deeper than the basic news articles Christine had shown her. What she found made her blood run cold. Castellano had been investigated for multiple murders over the past 20 years. Witnesses who'd testified against him had disappeared or recanted. Business partners who'd crossed him had suffered mysterious accidents. He'd been acquitted in every case, his expensive lawyers finding technicalities and reasonable doubt. But the pattern was clear. People who got in Vincent Castellano's way ended up dead. And Sarah had something he wanted very badly. The next morning, Sarah called Torres. Castellano contacted me yesterday, offered me $5 million to return the collection directly to him. Did you record the call? No, I didn't think to. What did you tell him? That I needed time to think. Torres was quiet. Ms. Chen, I need you to understand something. If you accept Castellano's offer, I can't protect you. You'd be admitting knowledge that the property was stolen and choosing to profit from it anyway. That's a felony. I'd have no choice but to arrest you. But if I don't accept, what happens? You said I might end up with nothing anyway. You might, but you won't be in prison. And you won't owe a debt to a man who kills people who inconvenience him. Torres's voice gentled slightly. I know the system isn't perfect, I know you're scared and desperate, and this feels impossible. But taking Castellano's money is not the answer. When he calls back, tell him no. Then call me immediately." Sarah hung up and buried her face in her hands. Every choice felt like a trap. Every path led to disaster. And in 12 hours, Castellano would call expecting an answer. She picked up Emma from school that afternoon and held her daughter extra tight. "Mama, you're squishing me." Emma protested, but she hugged back anyway. "I love you so much, baby girl. You know that, right?" "I know, Mama. I love you too. Are you okay?" "I'm okay. Just thinking about your daddy. I miss him sometimes," Emma said quietly. "Even though he wasn't always nice, I still miss him." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Marcus had been a mess, a disaster, a man who'd hurt them both in countless ways. But he'd also been Emma's father, and in his last act, he tried to give them something better, even if that gift was destroying them. At exactly 5 p.m., Sarah's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered on the third ring. "Ms. Chen." Castellano's smooth voice filled her ear. "Have you made a decision?" Sarah took a deep breath. She thought about Emma, about the future, about what kind of person she wanted to be. She thought about Marcus's note. "Protect our daughter," he'd written. "She's the only thing I ever did right." Protecting Emma meant more than just money. It meant teaching her that some things couldn't be bought or sold. It meant showing her that doing the right thing mattered, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. "My answer is no," Sarah said, her voice steady. "The collection belongs to whoever it was stolen from. Not to me and not to you. I'm cooperating with the FBI. If that means I end up with nothing, then that's what happens. But I won't take your money, and I won't help you avoid the consequences of your choices." There was a long silence. When Castellano spoke again, his voice had lost its smooth veneer. "You're making a very serious mistake, Ms. Chen." "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. You have a daughter, 7 years old. Emma, right? Goes to Riverside Elementary. Mrs. Patterson's second-grade class. She has a pink backpack with unicorns on it. She walks to school every morning at 8:15. Sarah's heart stopped. "If you touch her—" "I won't. But I don't have to touch her to make your life very difficult. Think about what happens when the FBI investigation drags on for months. When your landlord finds out you're involved in a federal case. When your employer decides you're too much of a liability. When Emma's school gets concerned calls about her mother's associations. You'll lose everything without me lifting a finger. Then I'll lose everything. But I'll still have my integrity. And my daughter will know I did the right thing." Castellano laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Integrity doesn't pay rent, Ms. Chen. You'll learn that soon enough. When you change your mind, and you will, you know how to reach me. But the offer won't be $5 million next time. It'll be considerably less." He hung up. Sarah immediately called Torres. He threatened Emma. Not directly, but he knows her school, her teacher, what she looks like. "He's been watching us. I'm sending agents to your apartment right now. Pack a bag for you and your daughter. You're going into protective custody until we can guarantee your safety." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." 2 hours later, Sarah and Emma were in an FBI safe house in a suburb she didn't recognize. The agents who'd brought them had been professional but tight-lipped. One stayed outside. Another sat in the living room, pretending to read a magazine. Emma was confused and frightened. "Mama, why are we here? Where are we sleeping tonight?" "We're staying here for a little while, baby. Just until some grown-up problems get solved." "What kind of problems?" "How did you explain to a 7-year-old that her father had hidden $280 million in stolen art in a condemned house? That organized crime wanted it back? That the FBI was investigating? That their lives would never be normal again?" "The kind that mamas have to handle," Sarah said, forcing a smile. "But you don't need to worry. You're safe here. I promise." It was a promise she desperately hoped she could keep. That night, after Emma finally fell asleep in the strange bedroom, Sarah sat on the porch of the safe house with Torres. The neighborhood was quiet, suburban, utterly normal. A world away from the nightmare her life had become. "How did this happen?" she asked quietly. "I was just trying to give my daughter a better life. That's all I wanted. And now we're hiding from the mob in a safe house." "Your ex-husband made choices that put you in this position," Torres said. "He knew the collection was hot. He knew people would come looking for it. And he hid it anyway, thinking he could get away with it. When he died, those consequences fell to you. He left a note saying he won in a poker game, that he was trying to fix Emma's future. Maybe he believed that, or maybe he knew he was dying and wanted to justify his choices. Either way, the collection is stolen property, and whoever stole it killed at least 2 people to get it. Your ex-husband might have been another victim. Sarah's hands trembled. You think he was murdered? I think his car accident should be reinvestigated. A man hides $280 million in a condemned house, then dies in a single car crash on an empty road. That's convenient for a lot of people. Torres looked at her. Miss Chen, I need to ask you something. If we recover the collection and return it to the insurance company, and if we can prove you inherited it in good faith, you might be entitled to a finder's fee. Usually 10% of recover value in cases like this. That would be $28 million. Sarah's breath caught. That's real? That's actually possible. It's possible. Not guaranteed, but possible. The insurance company would rather pay you $28 million and recover $280 million than fight you in court for years. But it requires you to keep cooperating, to testify if needed, to help us build the case against whoever orchestrated the original theft. And Castellano, we want to bring him down for 20 years. If you can help us do that, you'll be doing more than just securing your daughter's future. You'll be taking a very dangerous man off the streets. Sarah looked out at the quiet neighborhood, at the neat houses with their manicured lawns, at the normalcy she'd been chasing her entire life. Okay, she said, tell me what you need me to do. Over the next 3 weeks, Sarah lived in the safe house with Emma, cooperating with the FBI's investigation. She gave detailed statements about everything Marcus had told her, everything she'd found, everyone who'd contacted her. She identified items from photographs, helped trace provenance, provided access to Marcus's financial records. Emma adjusted better than Sarah expected. She did homework at the safe house kitchen table, played in the small backyard under the watchful eye of FBI agents, video called her best friend from school. To her, it was an adventure. She didn't understand the danger they were in. Sarah was grateful for that innocence. Let Emma have a few more weeks of not knowing how dark the world could be. The investigation moved quickly once the FBI had full cooperation. They traced the original theft to an inside job. One of Castellano's own security guards had orchestrated it with help from an authentication expert who'd been cataloging the collection. They planned to sell the items privately to wealthy collectors who didn't ask questions about provenance. But Marcus had won the collection from the authentication expert in a poker game before the planned sales could happen. The expert, desperate and probably terrified of what Castellano would do, had taken his chances with high-stakes gambling to recoup his losses. He'd lost everything to Marcus in a single night. 2 weeks later, the authentication expert was found dead in his Las Vegas apartment. Apparent suicide, according to local police. But Torres suspected otherwise. Castellano is cleaning up loose ends, he told Sarah. First the expert, then your ex-husband. You're the last person who knows where the collection is. Except I've already told you everything. He doesn't know that for certain, which makes you both useless to him and dangerous to him. That's a bad combination. On a Thursday afternoon in late March, Torres arrived at the safe house with Christine Lee and a man Sarah didn't recognize. Ms. Chen, this is Richard Winters from Consolidated Insurance Group. They paid out the claim on Castellano's theft. Technically, they now own the recovered collection. Winters was in his 50s, wearing an expensive suit and the expression of a man doing calculations in his head. Ms. Chen, my company has reviewed the FBI's findings and your cooperation with their investigation. We've also reviewed the legal precedent for finder's fees in cases of recovered stolen property. Sarah's heart hammered. This was it. The moment that would determine whether Emma's inheritance was real or just another broken promise. We're prepared to offer you a settlement, Winters continued. 25% of the recovered value, paid out over 5 years with the first $20 million provided immediately upon transfer of the collection to our custody. That's $71 million total. Sarah couldn't breathe, couldn't process the number. $71 million. The offer comes with conditions, Winters said. You sign a non-disclosure agreement. You don't discuss the details of the collection or its recovery publicly. You cooperate with any future legal proceedings related to the theft, and you accept the settlement as full and final payment. No future claims against the insurance company or any related parties. Christine was reading through documents, her lawyer's eyes scanning for traps. "This is actually a very fair offer," she said quietly to Sarah. "More than fair. They could have offered 10% and fought you in court for years. This is them wanting to close the case quickly." "Why?" Sarah asked Winters. "Because the longer this drags on, the more exposure we have. Castellano is already threatening litigation, claiming we owe him compensation since we paid out his claim and recovered the property. The publicity is damaging our reputation. We want this resolved." Winters pulled out a pen. "So what do you say, Miss Chen? Do we have a deal?" Sarah looked at Christine, who nodded slightly. She looked at Torres, who gave her a small smile. She thought about Emma, playing in the backyard with an FBI agent pushing her on a rusty swing set. "Yes," Sarah whispered. "We have a deal." The paperwork took hours. Sarah signed her name so many times her hand cramped. But when it was done, she held a cashier's check for $20 million and the promise of $51 million more over the next 5 years. "What happens now?" she asked Torres. "Now you go back to your life. We'll maintain surveillance on you and Emma for the next few months, just to be safe. Castellano is still out there, still angry. But with the collection recovered and returned to the insurance company, you're no longer a threat to him. You're just a woman who got lucky and smart enough to walk away." That night, Sarah sat on the edge of Emma's bed in the safe house, watching her daughter sleep. Tomorrow, they'd go home. Tomorrow, they'd start figuring out what came next. She pulled out her phone and looked at the photo of the check. $20 million. More money than her parents had earned in their entire lives combined. More than she'd ever dreamed of having. But it cost her. The stress, the fear, the weeks in hiding. The knowledge that Marcus had probably been murdered for this money. The understanding that dangerous people now knew her name and face. Was it worth it? Sarah didn't know. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would use every penny of that money to give Emma the life she deserved. A life where she never had to be afraid. Where she never had to wonder if there would be food tomorrow. Where her dreams weren't limited by the balance in her mother's checking account. Marcus had died trying to give them this. Sarah would honor that, even if she'd never fully forgive him for the way he'd lived. "Thank you," she whispered into the darkness, to the ghost of her ex-husband, for finally doing something right. In the morning, they would begin again. But tonight, for the first time in months, Sarah Chen let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. The apartment felt smaller when they returned. Sarah stood in the doorway, Emma's hand in hers, looking at the cramped studio that had been home for the past 3 years. The same cracked linoleum, the same water-stained ceiling, the same window that never quite closed all the way, letting in traffic noise and cold air. But she had $20 million in a bank account now. This didn't have to be home anymore. "Can we stay here, Mama?" Emma asked quietly. "I know it's small, but it's ours." Sarah's throat tightened. Emma had spent weeks in a safe house, away from her school and friends, afraid without fully understanding why. Now, she just wanted something familiar, something stable. "We can stay as long as you want, baby," Sarah said. "But maybe we could also start looking for a new place. Somewhere with a yard. Somewhere you could have your own bedroom." Emma's eyes lit up. "My own bedroom? Like with a door?" "With a door and everything." They spent that first week back adjusting to normalcy, or what passed for it. Sarah returned to work at the diner, even though she no longer needed the money. Maria raised an eyebrow when she walked in for her shift. "You're back. I thought maybe you quit without telling me. Just had some family stuff to deal with. It's resolved now." "You look different," Maria said, studying her face. "Lighter, maybe. Like something heavy got lifted off." Sarah smiled. Maybe it did. She worked that shift and the next one, but her heart wasn't in it anymore. Every time she refilled coffee or cleared plates, she thought about the check sitting in her bank account. She could quit, could walk away from this life of barely scraping by and start fresh. But something held her back. Fear, maybe, or the superstitious belief that if she changed too much too quickly, the universe would notice and take it all away. On Friday evening, Christine called. We need to talk about the money. $20 million sitting in a standard checking account is not a good idea. You need financial advisors, tax attorneys, investment strategies. And we need to discuss the Chen family. Sarah's stomach tightened. What about them? They're going to find out. The FBI investigation is becoming public knowledge. Local news is already reporting that stolen art worth $280 million was recovered. They're not naming you yet, but it's only a matter of time before someone connects the dots. And when Patricia Chen realizes you found something valuable in that condemned house, she'll come after it. Exactly. We need to be prepared. They met at Christine's office the next morning. Waiting with her was a financial advisor named Janet Huang and a tax attorney named Robert Foster. Both came highly recommended. Both specialized in sudden wealth, lottery winners, inheritance recipients, people whose lives changed overnight. The first thing you need to understand, Janet said, her manner brisk and professional, is that $20 million is a lot of money, but it's not infinite money. If you're not careful, it can disappear faster than you'd think. Taxes, investments, lifestyle inflation. We need to plan for all of it. I don't want a fancy lifestyle, Sarah said. I just want Emma to be secure. Smart. Here's what I recommend. First, we set aside 40% for taxes. That's $8 million. The IRS will come calling, and we need to be ready. Second, we put $5 million in a trust for Emma's education and future. She can't touch it until she's 25, but it'll be there earning interest. Third, we invest $4 million in a diversified portfolio, stocks, bonds, real estate. Low risk, steady growth. That leaves you $3 million liquid for immediate needs. New house, new car if you want one, emergency fund. Sarah's head spun. And the rest? The $51 million coming over the next 5 years. We build on this foundation. Each payment gets the same treatment. Taxes first, then Emma's trust, then investments, then liquid assets for you. By the time Emma turns 18, her trust should be worth $15 to $20 million. By the time she's 25, probably $30 million. She'll never have to worry about money. The numbers were so large, they stopped feeling real. Sarah had spent her entire adult life counting pennies, doing mental math at the grocery store to make sure she had enough. Now, someone was telling her daughter would have $30 million. What if something happens to me? Sarah asked quietly. Robert, the tax attorney, pulled out documents. We set up a comprehensive estate plan. If you die, everything goes into Emma's trust with Christine as trustee until Emma comes of age. We also designate backup trustees, establish healthcare directives, create a will. Everything is protected and legally bulletproof. Over the next 3 hours, Sarah signed more documents, made more decisions that would shape the rest of their lives. When it was done, she felt exhausted but also oddly calm. For the first time since finding the collection, she had a real plan. Not just survival, but an actual future. One more thing, Christine said as they wrapped up. You need to decide what you're telling people. Friends, family, Emma's school. The truth is going to come out, but you can control the narrative. What do I say? The truth mostly. You inherited property from your ex-husband. That property contained valuable items. You cooperated with authorities. You received a finder's fee. You don't have to mention the amount. You don't have to discuss details. Just acknowledge it happened and move on. And when Patricia Chen shows up demanding her share, Christine's smile was sharp. You tell her the estate was settled in court. She disclaimed all interest. The property and its contents legally belong to Emma, with you as custodial parent and trustee. If she doesn't like it, she can hire a lawyer and waste her money on a case she'll lose. Sarah felt a fierce satisfaction at that. Patricia had been so certain the house was worthless, so eager to avoid the liens. She'd laughed at Sarah for accepting it. Now she'd have to live with that decision. The confrontation came sooner than expected. Sarah was leaving the diner after an afternoon shift when a familiar Mercedes pulled up to the curb. Patricia Chen emerged, dressed immaculately as always, her face tight with barely controlled fury. You, she spat. You lying, manipulative little thief. Sarah stopped walking, her keys tight in her fist. Mrs. Chen, don't you dare act innocent. I know what you found. I know about the collection, about the FBI, about the settlement. You hid it from us. You let us disclaim interest in the estate, knowing there was something valuable there. I didn't know, Sarah said, her voice steady. When we were in court, I thought that house was worthless. I accepted it because it belonged to Emma, not because I knew what was inside. I don't believe you. Marcus was my son. Half of that money should go to his family. Marcus was Emma's father. The money is hers. I'm just managing it until she's old enough. Patricia stepped closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You're not fit to manage that kind of money. You're a waitress with a high school education. You'll waste it, lose it, or have it stolen from you within a year. Something hot and fierce rose in Sarah's chest. Years of condescension, of being made to feel less than, of watching this woman look at her granddaughter like a burden instead of a blessing. It all came pouring out. You're right, Sarah said quietly. I'm a waitress. I do have a high school education. And you know what else I am? I'm the person who was there for Emma every single day of her life, who worked 3 jobs to keep a roof over her head, who sat up with her when she was sick because Marcus was too drunk to care, who made sure she had food and clothes and love even when I had nothing left to give. I may not have your education or your money or your social standing, but I've earned the right to protect my daughter's future. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Patricia's face flushed red. We'll contest this. We'll take you to court. Marcus's family has rights. No, you don't. You disclaimed all interest in the estate. You signed legal documents. And even if you hadn't, Marcus left that collection for Emma. Not for you, not for David. For his daughter. The daughter you barely acknowledged while he was alive. How dare you? How dare you? Sarah interrupted, her voice steel. You had 7 years to be a grandmother to Emma. 7 years to show her love and support. Instead, you criticized me, belittled Marcus, and treated Emma like she was a mistake. Now you show up because there's money involved? No, you don't get a profit from the one decent thing Marcus did in his life. Patricia's hand trembled as she pointed at Sarah. This isn't over. I will make your life hell for this. Try, but you'll be fighting a team of lawyers on retainer and a federal case that's already closed. And while you're wasting money on legal fees, I'll be using Emma's inheritance to give her everything you never thought she deserved. Sarah walked past her to her car, her legs shaking but her head held high. She didn't look back. Behind her, she heard Patricia's Mercedes door slam and the engine roar to life. That night, Sarah told Emma a carefully edited version of what happened. Grandma Patricia is upset about Daddy's house and the things we found there. She might try to make trouble. Because of the money? Sarah blinked. What do you know about money? I'm not a baby, Mama. I know we were poor. I know the house had valuable stuff. I know you've been scared. Emma's voice was matter-of-fact, wise beyond her 7 years. Are we rich now? Sarah pulled her daughter close. We're secure now. That's different than rich. It means we don't have to worry about rent or food or doctor bills. It means you can go to good schools and have opportunities one never had. But it also means some people are going to treat us differently. Some will be nicer because they want something. Some will be meaner because they're jealous. Like Grandma Patricia? Like Grandma Patricia. Emma was quiet for a moment. I don't like her anyway. She was never nice to you. She's still your grandmother. She's still not nice. Sarah couldn't argue with that. Over the next month, Sarah began the process of building their new life. She hired a realtor and started looking at houses. Not mansions, not ostentatious displays of wealth, but comfortable family homes in good neighborhoods with excellent schools. They found one in Pasadena, a 3-bedroom craftsman with a yard and a tree that Emma immediately claimed for a swing. The asking price was $1.2 million, which would have been laughable 3 months ago. Now Sarah wrote a check without blinking. Emma got her own bedroom, painted purple at her request, with bookshelves and a window seat and space for all the stuffed animals she'd accumulated over the years. Sarah's bedroom was smaller, but had an in-soot bathroom and a closet bigger than their old studio apartment. The 3rd bedroom became an office where Sarah could manage their finances and meet with advisors without Emma overhearing adult concerns. They moved in on a Saturday in April, with help from Mrs. Kim and Maria from the diner. Both women had been shocked when Sarah explained about the inheritance, but supportive in their own ways. You deserve this, Maria said fiercely, carrying boxes into the new kitchen. After everything you've been through, you deserve something good. Mrs. Kim was more practical. Just don't forget where you came from. Money changes people. Don't let it change you. Sarah promised she wouldn't. But money did change things in ways both obvious and subtle. Emma's new school was private, expensive, full of children whose parents were doctors and lawyers and tech executives. Sarah felt out of place at the parent meetings, surrounded by designer clothes and casual mentions of vacation homes. But Emma thrived. She made friends, joined the art club, started taking piano lessons. She smiled more, laughed more, stopped having the stress-related stomachaches that had plagued her in their old life. That alone was worth every terrifying moment of the past months. Sarah quit the diner, though it took her 3 weeks to actually do it. Maria hugged her tight when she gave notice. "What will you do?" Maria asked. "I don't know yet. Maybe go back to school. Maybe volunteer. Maybe just be present for Emma in ways I couldn't before. You were always present for her. You were a good mother. I try to be. Now I get to try with resources instead of just love and willpower." Sarah did go back to school, enrolling part-time at UCLA to finally finish her degree. She studied business administration, thinking she should understand how to manage the wealth she'd stumbled into. The other students were mostly in their early 20s, but a few were older, returning to education after life had interrupted. She made friends with another single mother, Rebecca, who was juggling classes with 2 kids and a full-time job. Sarah helped her with childcare sometimes, and Rebecca helped Sarah remember that most people didn't have millions in the bank. That normal problems still existed, even when money wasn't one of them. But the threat of Castellano still lingered. In May, Torres called. "Thought you should know, we've arrested 3 people in connection with the original theft. The security guard, an authentication expert who helped plan it, and a buyer who was going to purchase the items. Castellano wasn't directly implicated, but we're building a RICO case. His organization is under heavy scrutiny. Does that mean Emma and I are safe? Safer. But Castellano is vindictive. He doesn't forget. You embarrassed him by cooperating with us instead of taking his deal. I'd maintain security precautions for at least another year. Home security system, awareness of your surroundings, vary your routines." Sarah had already installed a state-of-the-art security system, had enrolled Emma in self-defense classes disguised as a fun activity, had taught her daughter what to do if a stranger approached, how to get to safety, who to call. It wasn't the childhood Sarah had wanted for her, but it was the reality they lived in. In June, Sarah received the second payment from the insurance company, $10 million, right on schedule. Janet invested most of it, added to Emma's trust, set aside taxes. The numbers in Sarah's accounts grew to the point where they stopped feeling real. She started giving back. Anonymous donations to the food bank that had helped them when money was tight. Scholarship funds at Emma's old school. Support for single mothers trying to escape poverty. She created a foundation in Marcus's name, funding addiction treatment programs and support for families affected by gambling. If Marcus's death and his questionable choices were going to mean something, Sarah would make sure they helped people. That some good came from all the pain. In August, Patricia Chen filed a lawsuit contesting the estate settlement. Her lawyers argued that she'd been misled about the value of the property, that Sarah had hidden information, that Emma's inheritance should be split with Marcus's mother and brother. Christine dismantled the case in 3 court appearances. The judge was unimpressed with Patricia's claims. "Mrs. Chen," the judge said during the final hearing, "you appeared in this court and voluntarily disclaimed all interest in your son's estate. You signed legal documents confirming that decision. The fact that the property turned out to be valuable doesn't change your choice." Case dismissed. Patricia left the courtroom in fury, but she didn't appeal. Even she could see it was hopeless. That night, David Chen called Sarah. Marcus's brother, who'd sat silent through the original hearing, who'd let his mother drive every decision. "I'm sorry," he said without preamble, "for how we treated you, for what my mother tried to do. Marcus made a lot of mistakes, but marrying you wasn't one of them. And Emma is lucky to have you as a mother." Sarah was so surprised she didn't know what to say. "I know we can't undo the past," David continued, but I'd like to be part of Emma's life, if you'll let me. Not because of the money, because she's my niece and I've been a lousy uncle. Why now? Sarah asked. Because watching my mother these past months, seeing her rage over money she never earned, it reminded me of everything wrong with our family. The entitlement, the judgment, the way we measured worth in dollars. I don't want to be like that anymore. Sarah thought about it. Emma could use more family in her life. But you need to understand, I'm protecting her. From fortune hunters, from manipulation, from anyone who wants to use her for her money. If I get even a hint that you're not sincere, I understand. I'll earn your trust, however long it takes. David kept his word. He started small, birthday cards, occasional phone calls, asking about Emma's interests without pushing for visits. When Sarah finally allowed a supervised meeting, he brought a book about horses, Emma's current obsession, and spent 2 hours playing board games without mentioning money once. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was a start. September brought Emma's 8th birthday. Sarah threw her a party at the new house, inviting her new school friends and a few kids from her old neighborhood. She hired a bounce house, a face painter, a magician. Emma laughed so hard she got hiccups, surrounded by presents and cake and friends. Watching her daughter's joy, Sarah felt something loosen in her chest. This was what it had all been for. Not the house or the bank account or the security. This moment of pure childhood happiness. That night, after the guests left and Emma was asleep surrounded by new toys, Sarah sat in her office looking at the framed photograph on her desk. It was Marcus, taken years ago when he was sober and smiling, holding newborn Emma in the hospital. Before the drinking got worse. Before the gambling consumed him. Before everything fell apart. She's okay, Sarah whispered to the photo. Our girl is okay. You be proud of her. She still didn't know if Marcus's car accident had been murder or bad luck or drunk driving. Torres had investigated, but couldn't prove anything definitively. Maybe it didn't matter. Marcus was gone. What remained was the choice he'd made to hide that collection, to protect it for Emma, to finally put his daughter first. It had cost him everything, but it had saved them. In October, Torres called with news. Castellano's been indicted. 17 counts including racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder. We can't prove he ordered your ex-husband's death, but we've got him on enough that he'll die in prison. Will I have to testify? Probably not. Your part is tangential to the main case. But Ms. Chen, you should know that Castellano's associates are going to be looking for revenge. Not against you directly, but anyone connected to his downfall is at risk. Stay vigilant. Sarah tightened security again, hired a private security consultant to assess vulnerabilities, made sure Emma's school had protocols in place. But as months passed and nothing happened, the fear gradually faded to background awareness. She stopped jumping at every unexpected noise, stopped checking the locks 3 times before bed, started believing that maybe, just maybe, the danger had passed. By December, Sarah had completed her first semester at UCLA with a 3.8 GPA. Emma had won a prize in her school's art competition. The third payment from the insurance company arrived, another $10 million that mostly disappeared into trusts and investments and taxes. Their lives had found a rhythm. Not normal. Normal was something they'd left behind the moment Sarah opened that basement door. But stable. Secure. Something resembling peace. On Christmas morning, Sarah woke early and went downstairs to find Emma already awake, sitting in front of the tree with its mountain of presents. "Mama, is this real?" Emma asked softly. "Do we really get to keep this?" Sarah sat beside her daughter, pulling her close. "Yes, baby. This is real. This is our life now. I keep thinking I'll wake up and we'll be back in the old apartment. Me too sometimes. But we're not. This is where we live now. This is who we are now." Emma leaned her head on Sarah's shoulder. "I miss the old apartment sometimes. It was small, but it was cozy. And I miss when it was just us and we didn't have to worry about security systems and strangers following us." Sarah's throat tightened. The money had given them so much: security, opportunity, freedom from constant financial stress. But it had also taken something. The simplicity of their old life, when their problems were straightforward even if they were difficult. "We can't go back," Sarah said gently. "But we can remember that we survived those hard times together. And we can use what we have now to help other people who are where we used to be. They spent Christmas Day together, just the two of them, opening presents and making cookies and watching movies in pajamas. It was perfect in its simplicity. That evening, as Sarah tucked Emma into bed in her purple bedroom with its overflowing bookshelves and window seat, her daughter asked the question Sarah had been dreading. "Mama, why did Daddy hide all that stuff? Why didn't he just tell you about it?" Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, choosing her words carefully. "I think your daddy was scared. He'd made some bad choices and gotten involved with dangerous people. He was trying to protect us the only way he knew how. By dying? No, baby. I don't think he meant to die. I think he was trying to fix things before it was too late. He just ran out of time." Emma was quiet. "Do you think he loved us? Even though he was mean sometimes?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I think he loved you very much. He just didn't know how to show it properly. The drinking and the gambling, they made him someone he didn't want to be. But yes, Emma, your daddy loved you. That's why he hid that collection. It was his way of making sure you'd be okay, even if he couldn't be there. I wish he was here to see our new house." "Me too, baby. Me too." In January, Sarah received a letter forwarded through Christine's office. The return address was a federal prison in Nevada. The sender was Vincent Castellano. Her hand shook as she opened it. "Ms. Chen," it read in elegant handwriting, "you made a choice last year that cost me considerably. You chose the FBI over my generous offer. You chose uncertain legal proceedings over guaranteed compensation. At the time, I told you it was a mistake. I stand by that assessment. However, I write not to threaten, but to acknowledge. You have more spine than I credited you with. In my world, few people choose integrity over expedience. Your ex-husband certainly didn't. He won my collection through cheating, marked cards, a rigged game. I would have killed him for it eventually, but fate intervened. You, however, had no such trickery. You simply refused to be bought. There's a certain nobility in that, even if it was financially foolish. I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. My empire is being dismantled. My associates are turning on each other. I have no power to threaten you or your daughter. But I wanted you to know that I respect what you did, even as I hate you for it. Raise your daughter well. Teach her that courage matters more than money." God knows I never learned that lesson. Vincent Castellano. Sarah read the letter 3 times, then showed it to Christine and Torres. Both studied it carefully. "Is it safe?" Sarah asked. "As safe as anything from a man like Castellano," Torres said. "I think he's genuine. He's facing life without parole. His organization is destroyed. He has nothing to gain from threatening you now. This is him acknowledging defeat. Should I respond? No. Let in here. He said his piece. You don't owe him anything." Sarah filed the letter away in her safe deposit box, a strange memento of the strangest period of her life. February brought Valentine's Day and Emma's first school dance. Sarah watched her daughter get ready, wearing a dress they'd picked out together, her hair done in elaborate braids. "You look so grown up," Sarah said, her voice thick. "Mama, I'm 8. I'm not grown up. You're growing up. That's the problem." Emma rolled her eyes, but hugged her anyway. "I love you, even when you're being mushy. I love you more." At the dance, Sarah stood with other parents, watching children twirl and laugh on the decorated gymnasium floor. She recognized some of the parents from school events, wealthy, accomplished, comfortable in ways Sarah still wasn't. A woman approached, someone Sarah had met briefly at orientation. "Your daughter is Emma, right? She and my daughter Madison are in art class together." "Yes, that's Emma. Madison talks about her all the time. Says she's incredibly talented." The woman extended her hand. "I'm Jennifer Morrison." They chatted about school and children and the upcoming spring recital. Normal parent conversation. At no point did Jennifer mention money or inheritances or FBI investigations. Either she didn't know or she was too polite to bring it up. Sarah was grateful either way. As winter turned to spring, Sarah's life continued to normalize. She completed her second semester of college with even better grades. Emma thrived in school and activities. The house felt more like home and less like a surreal dream. The fourth payment arrived in March, $10 million. By now, Sarah barely reacted to the numbers. They went through the same process: taxes, Emma's trust, investments, liquid assets. The routine was almost boring. Almost. In April, Christine called with unexpected news. The insurance company wants to meet with you. They have a proposal. What kind of proposal? They wouldn't say over the phone, but they asked me to assure you it's nothing adversarial. They want to discuss future arrangements. Sarah met with them at Christine's office. Richard Winters was there again, along with 2 other executives. Ms. Chen, thank you for meeting with us, Winters began. As you know, you've been an exemplary partner in recovering the stolen collection. Your cooperation saved us millions in legal fees and months of investigation. We're grateful. You're welcome. Winters smiled. We have a proposal. The remaining payments owed to you, $31 million over the next 3 years. We'd like to settle them in a lump sum now. Sarah's heart skipped. How much? $25 million. Paid immediately. Tax implications handled by us. In exchange, the settlement is complete. No more annual payments. No more ongoing relationship. Clean break. Christine leaned forward. Why? Because we've recovered and auctioned the collection for substantially more than we expected. We're closing the books on this case. A lump sum settlement lets us finalize everything and move on. Sarah did quick math. The remaining payments totaled $31 million. They were offering $25 million now. She'd lose $6 million by accepting. But she'd also be done. No more annual reminders of Marcus's death. No more waiting for payments. No more connection to Castellano or the FBI or any of it. Can I think about it? Sarah asked. Of course. We'd like an answer by end of week. That night, Sarah discussed it with Janet, her financial advisor. Mathematically, you lose $6 million. But there's value in closure. And $25 million invested properly will grow to much more than the difference over time. Sarah thought about Emma, about the trust that already held $15 million, about the $20 million in various investments, about the house they owned outright and the life they'd built. Accept it, Sarah said. Let's be done with this. The check arrived 5 days later. $25 million. Sarah deposited it, watched the balance in her accounts reach numbers that still didn't feel real, and let herself breathe. It was finished. The collection, the investigation, the threats, the fear. All of it was behind them. In May, Sarah graduated from UCLA with her bachelor's degree in business administration. Emma sat in the audience wearing a "That's my mama" sign that made Sarah cry. David was there too, having proven over months that his commitment to being in Emma's life was genuine. Afterward, at the celebration dinner, Emma raised her juice glass in a toast. To Mama, who's the bravest person I know. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. To family, she said. The ones we're born with and the ones we choose. That summer, they took their first real vacation. 2 weeks in Hawaii, staying at a resort that cost more per night than Sarah used to make in a month. Emma learned to snorkel, built sandcastles, laughed until her sides hurt. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the beach, Emma said, "Mama, are we really, really rich? We're really, really comfortable, baby. That's different." Ow. Rich is when you forget what it was like to struggle. Comfortable is when you remember but don't have to struggle anymore. I never want us to forget where we came from. The old apartment, and before that, your daddy's mistakes and my mistakes and all the hard times that made us who we are. The money is nice. The security is wonderful. But what matters is that we take care of each other and use what we have to help people. Emma thought about that. Like your foundation? Exactly like my foundation. The Marcus Chen Memorial Foundation had grown significantly. Sarah had endowed it with $5 million, funding treatment programs and family support services across California. She volunteered there twice a week, meeting with families affected by addiction, offering support she wished someone had offered her. It turned out that having money meant she could finally do the things she'd always wanted to do, but never had time or resources for. She could be present for Emma. She could help others. She could live instead of just survive. In August, on what would have been Marcus's 35th birthday, Sarah and Emma visited his grave for the first time. It was a modest stone in a cemetery outside Los Angeles, paid for by Patricia, though she'd never visited. Emma placed flowers on the grave, daisies, bright and cheerful. "Hi, Daddy," she said softly. "I'm 8 now. I like art and horses and my friend Madison. Mama says you would be proud of me." Sarah's throat was tight. "He would be, baby. For sure. Are you proud of him?" Emma asked, looking up at her mother. Sarah considered the question. Marcus had been a drunk and a gambler. He'd hurt them both. He'd made terrible choices and left them to clean up his messes. But he'd also left them a fortune, intentionally or not. He'd given Emma a future. "I'm proud of what he tried to do at the end," Sarah said carefully. "He made a lot of mistakes, but he loved you. That's what I choose to remember." They stood in silence for a moment, the August heat pressing down, cicadas buzzing in the trees. "Can we go now?" Emma asked. "This place is sad." "Yeah, baby. We can go." As they drove away from the cemetery, Sarah glanced in the rearview mirror one last time. Then she focused on the road ahead, on the daughter beside her, on the life they were building together. The past was important, but it wasn't where they lived anymore. In October, Sarah received a call from Torres. "Thought you'd want to know. Castellano was found dead in his cell. Apparent suicide, though there are questions. Questions. Whether it was self-inflicted or someone silenced him. Prison investigation is ongoing. But either way, he's gone. That chapter is officially closed." Sarah felt a complicated mix of emotions. Relief, mostly, but also a strange sadness for a man who'd built an empire on violence and died alone in a cell. "Thank you for letting me know," she said. "How are you doing?" "You and Emma?" "We're good. Really good. Glad to hear it. You did the right thing, Miss Chen. Not everyone in your position would have." After he hung up, Sarah sat in her office thinking about choices. About the moment she could have taken Castellano's $5 million and run. About how tempting it had been. About how differently everything could have turned out. But she'd chosen integrity over expedience. Truth over convenience. And somehow, impossibly, it had worked out. In November, Sarah turned 33. Emma planned a surprise party, inviting friends from school and neighbors and people from the foundation. Sarah was genuinely shocked when she walked into what she thought was an empty house to find it full of people. "Did you really not know?" Emma asked, delighted. "I really didn't know. You're a good secret keeper. I learned from the best." That made Sarah laugh and cry at the same time. As December approached, Sarah reflected on the year since they'd moved into the house. So much had changed. They'd gone from hunted to safe, from terrified to secure, from surviving to thriving. Emma had grown 3 inches and developed opinions about everything. She'd discovered a talent for painting and a passion for environmental causes. She'd made real friends and found her confidence. Sarah had completed her degree, launched a foundation, and learned that having money didn't solve all problems. It just changed which problems you had. But most importantly, they'd stayed themselves. They hadn't lost their connection to their old life or forgotten what struggle felt like. The money was a tool, not an identity. On Christmas Eve, Sarah and Emma volunteered at the shelter where Sarah used to go for food when money was impossibly tight. They served meals and distributed presents and saw themselves in the faces of families still fighting. "That was us once," Emma said on the drive home. "That was us," Sarah agreed. "And might have been us again if your daddy hadn't left us that house. I'm glad he did, even though it was scary for a while." "Me too, baby. Me too." That night, after Emma was asleep, Sarah walked through the house she now called home. The living room with its comfortable furniture. The kitchen where they cooked meals together. Emma's room with its purple walls and art supplies. Her own office where she managed wealth that still felt unreal. She thought about the condemned house on Magnolia Street, the one that had started everything. Christine had helped her pay off the liens and donate the property to a nonprofit that renovated homes for low-income families. It would be fixed up and given to someone who needed it. Full circle, in a way. Sarah pulled out her phone and looked at the photo she'd taken that first day in the basement. The inventory list showing $284 million in collectibles. It seemed impossible now, like it had happened to someone else. But it had happened to her, to them, and they'd survived it. More than survived, they'd used it to build something meaningful. Emma's trust would ensure she'd never struggle the way Sarah had. The foundation would help families escape the traps of addiction and poverty. And Sarah herself had learned that she was stronger, braver, and more capable than she'd ever imagined. Marcus had left them a fortune. But more than that, he'd left them a choice. They could have hidden it, hoarded it, lived in fear of losing it. Instead, they'd chosen transparency, cooperation, generosity. And somehow, impossibly, that had been the right choice. On New Year's Eve, Sarah and Emma stood on their back porch watching fireworks light up the Pasadena sky. Emma leaned against her mother, content and warm. "What are you wishing for, Mama?" Emma asked. Sarah thought about it. A year ago, she would have wished for money, for security, for relief from constant stress. Now she had all that. "I wish for us to always remember where we came from," Sarah said, "and to use what we have to help others find their way out." "That's a good wish. What about you? What are you wishing for?" Emma was quiet for a moment. "I wish for more nights like this. Just us together, happy." Sarah pulled her daughter close, tears in her eyes. "That's the best wish of all." As midnight approached and the fireworks reached their crescendo, Sarah thought about the journey that had brought them here. The condemned house bought for $5. The basement full of impossible wealth. The dangerous people and federal investigations and terrifying choices. All of it had led to this moment. To her daughter safe and happy in her arms. To a future full of possibility instead of fear. To the knowledge that sometimes the most desperate gambles led to the most extraordinary victories. Marcus Chen had been a flawed man who'd made terrible choices. But in his final act, he'd given his daughter everything. Not just money, but opportunity. Not just security, but hope. "Thank you," Sarah whispered into the night, to the ghost of her ex-husband, for finally getting something right. The fireworks exploded overhead, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Emma laughed and pointed at the biggest bursts, her face glowing with reflected light. And Sarah Chen, who'd once been a struggling waitress facing eviction, who'd inherited a $5 house and discovered a $280 million secret, who'd chosen integrity over expedience and somehow survived to tell about it. Sarah Chen held her daughter close and let herself believe in happy endings. Because this was theirs. Hard-won, terrifying, improbable, but absolutely, undeniably real. Their story had started with mockery and debt and a condemned house nobody wanted. It ended with love and security and the understanding that sometimes the things everyone else dismisses as worthless turn out to be exactly what saves you. Emma's inheritance wasn't just the money. It was the lesson that courage mattered more than comfort, that doing right mattered more than doing easy, that a mother's love could carry them through anything, even finding $280 million in a $5 house. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.